İskoçya Parlamento Binası, Hamburg Hafen City Limanı, Diagonal Mar Park, Expo Şangay 2010 İspanyol Pavyonu gibi önemli projelere imza atan Tagliabue, konuk olduğu RIBA, Londra'daki Bartlett Mimarlık Okulu ve Mimarlar Birliği, Amsterdam Berlage Enstitüsü ve New York Columbia Üniversitesi'nden sonra fikirlerini paylaşmak için bugün aramızda. Kendi zihninde canlanan hayali peyzajlardan bahsedecek olan Tagliabue, her kişinin şehir okumasını ve şehir algısını öznel kılan zihinde oluşturulan şehir manzaraları ve peyzajların kendi zihnindeki yansımalarını aktaracak. Şimdi huzurlarınızda kendisini konuşması yapmak üzere sahneye davet ediyorum.
Aha. And can I see the images here? Oh. Okay. So, good evening, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here in Istanbul again. Today I received many times the question, have you been in Istanbul before? Well, I was in Istanbul 2 hours actually. One day when with Eric Miralles, who was my husband, was my partner in life and profession, we did a trip, one of the few holiday trips, and we went on the Black Sea. And so we started the trip here, and it was really incredible to go through the Bosphorus with the boat, going into the Black Sea and then going back towards Greece. It was really a fantastic experience that I will never forget. So it's very touching for me to be here again. And I don't know if I prepared the right lecture for you, because we have a lot of projects and we wish to show everything that we have been doing. But I like very much the introduction from the director of YEM now, saying that it's fantastic that now women are here to give lectures, and they are maybe not only in the home cooking and looking after children, but in a way, this first image is about our studio, and in a way, I really feel like I'm looking after all these children, which is my studio, and I feel like the mama, and what we do is like cooking in a way, you know. We cook projects and we try to make them as good as possible so that the clients and the users are happy, and also that the public of the lecture are happy to listen to what we try to do. In fact, we are kind of artisans, you know. We have been going through a lot of experiences in our life because we like traveling, but also we are very home-like. And when we won this project, which was a very complicated project, it was the Scottish Parliament, we thought, this is not for us. This is too much an institutional project, something which we are not ready for. And then we tried to transform it into something familiar, you know, the institution of the Parliament. We tried to transform it into a beautiful garden, a building which looks like a garden, which looks like this beautiful landscape. The building and the landscape which mingles are nearly the same. The new relationship between this building and the palace of the Queen, which you see, it's very, very near. And so we tried always to transform what we were doing in something very easy, very familiar, very near to the way we are working. And of course, it's not simple. It's not simple, but we maybe are not for simple symbols or simple architecture. We like very much complexity in life, and life is very complex, as a building is very complex. No, you need to have a lot of functions, a lot of things happening in the city, and then the building is something which is reflecting that. What I like more of the building, nevertheless, even if it's built, is mainly the open spaces. You know, this building was able to create a piazza, a relationship where there was nothing. You know, this was the end of a street, and the street was finishing with the palace of the Queen, and now it's finishing with a public space, with a piazza, which stays between the power of the crown and the power of people, of the parliament. So in a way, it's a kind of making this power becoming more familiar, becoming even accessible, you know. I think this is a little making noise, but never mind. This access is important because it gives the impression that this building is really designed for people to be able to enter inside and to make really the visit and to make the building become their building. So, for example, the main hall, which is the debating chamber, is dedicated to people on the top floor and very much looking like a boat, because we thought that boats are places nowhere, belonging to no nation, and so this was a kind of place with no location for Scotland, so that everybody could feel at home in this room, which is not really in Edinburgh, but is maybe in the middle of the sea, so that people can take decisions with no problems in this place. So this was a big experience of the Scottish Parliament. The Scottish Parliament was really changing our way of doing. We became able really to make architecture outside our country and trying to communicate even in very difficult situations. But mainly we try to maintain this that we always try to do, this relationship with the landscape, so that buildings and landscape are nearly the same thing. They are kind of mingling, and in other buildings this is also happening, because this is something that we really believe in. So it's happening every time we are taking our pencils in our hands. So this in Vigo is a university campus, but the university campus is on a mountain, and so we are trying to make the landscape of the mountain transform, and little by little this transformation is leading to places that you can inhabit, like pieces of mountains which are coming up and are becoming the classrooms, or other pieces of mountains which are inside the mountain itself and become very, very strong, like caves. And this is creating the space on a mountain for the students to be. Also, we tried in Barcelona something that we have never done before, which is maybe not going so easily together with the idea of mingling building and landscape. We won the competition to make a corporate building for the gas company. They wanted to have, of course, a landmark, something very visible from the distance, a high-rise building. And what we tried to do was to make the high-rise become like a rock, become like a kind of something happening in the landscape of the city and mingling very much with its surrounding. So the building is changing, and even if it's a landmark, sometimes it's transparent. For example, here you don't see the building because the building is here. Oh, I did a disaster, I think. Okay, we're back. Wonderful. So the building is here, you see, but you only see the shadow. And here you see it a little more, but it's totally black because it's reflecting the earth. But then you realize that this building is looking always different from whatever point of view you look at it. And it is because it's a very complex geometry. It's really looking like a rock which is designed in relation to its position in the city, and which is really reacting in relation to the railway, to the position of the sea, to the position of the fast ways, and is becoming a kind of something changing, like a flame. And in fact, the flame is in a way the only thing, physical thing you see of the gas. When you have a gas burning and giving heat to your place, what you see is a little flame, and the flame is always changing. But also, it's not only changing, but also giving space to the city. So it's not a high-rise which is separated from the city, but is really in relationship with it. And the ground floor is a big street passing through and making the whole of this building. So the building has a high hall, which is the cut inside its verticality, and also a kind of triumphal arch, which is a big cantilever, which is done thanks to our fantastic engineer who collaborate with us in complex architecture. And the city can go underneath the building. So the public space is really underneath the building. And you have this fantastic thing of civilization that a private building gives the possibility for all the city to go very, very near it. Today someone was asking me about security, if we now live in a very unsecure society, if this is influencing architecture. I think this image, this building, wouldn't be possible if it was not in a very civilized city, a very secure city, where you have security, a very thin net of security in other sides than in the physical part. And then in the physical part, you have an openness everybody can go through, and the limit between private and public is touching. So that's why I also like very much this building, which is in a way a urban, visible thing, but also something which is disappearing and is transforming sometimes into a kind of a mirror, which is hiding itself and is making the city appear. But one of the buildings which I love more, even if I said today that the buildings are like children, no? And I have children in the office, but also all the projects you do are like your children, and you love them all, even if they are all different, and they all look a little by each other. But maybe this one, the project of Santa Caterina, the market, is the one that is very near to my heart, because it was really very autobiographical, and it was a project where, together with Rick Miralles, we learned a lot, and we really started to deal with the old city. You see, the Gas Natural building is back there, under construction, and a little near in Barcelona, there is this spot which in the past was looking like this. A very, very dense city, which was the dense city of Barcelona, with a big area which was dedicated to market, which was one of the very civic activities, buying and selling, this going to the market as going to the public space. But the rest of the city was totally closed. And when people was asking us to renew this place, we really had to make a project which was putting together the new market as a strength to renew the rest of the city and to open up that piece of city which remained very closed in itself during centuries. So you see what we have been doing. We have tried to put a kind of less last century geometry, but to transform this avenue in a kind of a smooth avenue entering little by little into the old city, and then you don't notice anymore where the old buildings and the new buildings are, because actually the new buildings are next to the old buildings, they are touching each other, and the market is acting like a point of attraction, like a doorway, like inviting everybody into this part of the city which remained closed for so many centuries. So this is a kind of a very strong urban project. Now I don't know if I touch. Do you know how is the pointer? Is it possible? Because otherwise I make a disaster.
You just press the red button.
Ah, perfect. Okay. So a new way in. This was not existing. This was a new way in, and the Santa Caterina market is greeting the people. But also in the back, you have very, very, very small streets going underneath the housing, which is also part of the complex, and connecting in the size of the old city. This is a very, very urban project, and we were involved in the project when the project was when the place was very in a decay. No, you could see the market was very gloomy, one of the poorest market and the poorest piece of city of Barcelona. So it was a very big challenge. And we were very much helped by the city in order to do this big project and in order to arrive to give colors, light, openings to this piece of city which was instead gloomy, grey, closed. So this was a big work, and it was during 10 years that we had been working at the beginning without even knowing what we were going to do. We were looking at the plans like this one, and we were trying to understand how the old city works, how small cities are important and small streets are important, how we could open up this closed piece of city and make the market really being a part of the attraction towards this piece of city, which is now dedicated to the neighbors. So this pergola and this roof coming out from the market was very strategic. It was in a way this possibility for people to go in a place which was not existing before and to be attracted to go there. Not only because into the market you will find a fantastic world of senses, but also because you find a city in the background that you have never seen before, because in fact before it was totally closed. So to do that, we had to reinvent the market, especially the roof of the market. The roof had to jump on top of the old walls and to go in the street. And to do that, we spent a lot of time trying to see how we could invent the new structure of the new roof of the market Santa Caterina. Also, we didn't want to have pillars inside, and we didn't want to have a too visible structure. It's a market, you know? The old structure was very humble, done in wood, very beautiful. So we made a lot of little tries with hands, with cardboard, which were looking like this, kind of three-dimensional sketches, that then started to become real drawings with structure, and a poor, fantastic engineer had to calculate one by one all the reaction of every beam in this very complex roof. Of course, our aim would have been to do such a spectacular and simple roof as the one of Gaudí, that Gaudí could do in the small schools that he built next to the Sagrada Familia. This was too fantastic, too good. Of course, we were not able to do something like that, but we studied that a lot, and we had it in our inside. But the relationship with history was very strong in this project. We knew that underneath the project there was 200 years before there was a monastery, a Gothic monastery. But because of the very violent history of Barcelona, which was very compressed, this monastery was destroyed and was attacked and burned. And at the end, they destroyed the monastery to give place to the market, which was like a big piazza. But then, when we worked on it, of course, we started to dig, and we found all this immense archaeological site. But it was a very confused archaeological site, and then also the authorities decided that it was better to keep only one part, document the other, and let the market go on being a very alive place. But nevertheless, it was an experience for us. We really were shocked, and we did these photographs because those stones was looking at the light for the first time from many centuries before. So we were imagining the many dead bodies which were buried in the church and in the graveyard there, that now could look up and could see the city of Barcelona surrounding it. And this was giving us this sense of continuity. There was in the same time discovering of all the graveyards, all the ruins on digging underneath the market, and also the construction and the destruction going on together, so that we had very strong the feeling that we were not dealing with the past, but the past was present, and we were part of time. And this gave us really another way of understanding how to act with historical building. And we just thought that when you deal with an historical place, you are part of history, but you have to be very humble because you are a very small part, and history was always in movement, and you're only part of this small movement. So maybe with this in mind, with this consciousness, we were stronger, and we decided, okay, now we're doing a market. Maybe in the future this market will be destroyed, we don't know, but now life needs to have a roof, needs to have a kind of a happy roof, because we would like people to come here happily, buy, make these fantastic rituals of preparing food. And then this ritual of preparing food, these colors that you find when you go to a market, we thought it would be very generous to put it on top of the roof, to give it to the people. And so really, with the help of fantastic ceramists, there are some very good artisans in Spain who still can do fantastic ceramic work, we started to work on the roof of Santa Caterina as if it was a kind of a piece of market visible for all the city. And so this colors, this triumph of colors was arriving to the views and to the eyes of everybody, and was influencing the city. The city surrounding it had finally, instead of a grey roof, a very, very colorful place, which was looking like a park, and the city was renovated, as you can see. Each one of the city surrounding, of the houses surrounding, was repainted and trying to become new again. So it was a very beautiful experience, really dealing with these old walls and new structures, and all of them becoming at the same time, functioning at the same moment, and becoming a place for activity, for an activity which is a very old one, which is the one of the market. I think one of the oldest activity you can find in humanity, but then really renewed in a kind of repetition of activities in time. So this has a social impact, of course. If you can manage to bring about a renewal of a city, and this is not only the architects, this is also the politicians and the technicians all working together, then of course you have a great impact in the society surrounding the place. So in a way, it's fantastic for me to see these images of which were, you know, not created. We really find it in place of children playing in the surroundings of Santa Caterina and finally becoming friends, because architecture can try to give a better place to people and then make a kind of a better society by small things. And this is a photograph I love very much. It was the day of the opening of Santa Caterina, and our daughter and son, their names is Caterina, and the son is called Domenic. Dominicans were the monks who were inhabiting the monastery of Santa Caterina. And of course, with my husband, Eric, we were thinking that this project had a very strong impact in our life. It was next to our house, it was our market, our neighbors, and then our son and daughter had this story embodied in themselves. But nevertheless, everything is going on, and the stories are many stories. So also in Barcelona we had a story of a beautiful landscape which was done in a place which in the past was an abandoned part of the city. It was an industrial part in the past, and here you find all the lines of the different layers of history in the place. And now it was reconverted in a very big place with a big operation given in the hands of an American promoter called Gerald Hines. So we were talking with Gerald Hines and with the city in order to create a park where there was nothing and where the city was ending. You know, this was the end of the Diagonal, which is one of the big lines of the avenues in Barcelona. And we thought that the park had to be a kind of a piazza to enter into the green. So you have these places which are like very much like patios, like a solid pavimentation, which leads you into the park, into the green. And you can come from the street, and then little by little you enter into the natural elements which are always governed by artificial shapes, like these fountains, for example, or these games which are very much dedicated to the children who live around. And this was a very, you know, like the Bronx of Barcelona. But when you give spaces, very civilized spaces, then usually the people changes. No? Of course, the people can destroy and change the public space that you give, but most of the time, the public space can make a better society surrounding. So this is the Diagonal Mar Park with its many games. And in a way, this was introducing a kind of something that we never thought about. You know, in Spain, we as architects we dedicate ourselves to many types of activities. We can design pieces of cities, but also we can design small objects or sets for theaters. So we don't have a specialization. In Germany, for example, they do. They have landscape architects and architects. But we think that we are both, and we think that this is a very important way of being as architect, kind of thinking that you're dealing with spaces, never mind if the space is closed or is open. And thanks to this, we could win a big competition in Hamburg, which in principle is dedicated to landscape architects. And this competition was here. This was the old harbor. You see, this is the beautiful Hamburg. And this part was a kind of a private park because it was dedicated to the traffic of boats. But now the real harbor is this, and it's even much bigger than what we have in the photograph. So you can understand that this small part is really much more convenient to give it back to this round piece of old city. So our duty was to design all the open spaces of this future city, and we only had the harbor at the moment. And then we were looking at the harbor and discovered that in the past, when it was used harbor, you had water and earth, and actually many times the borders were changing because boats were going in and out and were giving different situation. No? The harbor was changing all the time. So our project was giving this change of borders. No, we were trying to give to the city more fluidity, more relationship to the water, a little like going back to the time where the harbor was used by boats. So we designed floating piazzas. We designed a lot of stairs which were making less separation from the top level where the building have to be, and the down level, which is becoming kind of dangerous because the water here is considered to be dangerous. And we always kept in mind elements from the past, you know, when the harbor was used like this and was always transforming. I think the harbor is one of the most interesting places because it's transforming all the time. So you can stay watching at the harbor because the movement is happening. And we were trying with our architecture to give a kind of movement, to give the movement to the citizens, and mainly the possibility to get near to the water because the water is an incredible element. As you know very well, because you live in a water city where the water is giving part of the quality of the fantastic city you live in. So we were making about the difficulty of separating with a lot of different levels the water from the city. We used it as a positive thing, and we put a lot of stairs which can become seats, which become inhabited by many elements, like, for example, these lights, which are kind of simulating trees. And the place became kind of full of things happening. So we put different pavimentation, we used materials which were materials of the harbor of Hamburg, with bricks of different stones, in order to go back with our intervention to a situation like this one, where really every day you had a different harbor happening under your eyes. So floating piazzas, and also some boats coming back to the harbor, even if they are historical boats and maybe in the future touristic boats. And meanwhile, the city was growing, no? A city of offices, a city of housing, and little by little the people was discovering this place. That at the beginning, the people from Hamburg were saying to us, oh, you are making a place which is good in Barcelona, but not in Hamburg. We have a very, very tough weather. But in fact, the people in Hamburg appreciated this public space, I would say, more than Spanish people appreciate their spaces. They really, whenever they have the possibility, go out on Saturdays and Sundays. You have the possibilities to make those photos of the joy of having somewhere in the open space to share with other people and to feel the strength of the elements. So this was also a very good experience, which is still going on because this project is a very long-lasting project. And now we are going in a faraway place. No, this was a competition like the competition for the Scottish Parliament that we thought we would never win. No, we did the competition because we make something like 10 or 12 competition every year, a disaster, and we win very little. But this one we said impossible. This is the Spanish pavilion for the Expo in Shanghai underneath the Lupo Bridge. It will be impossible to win it. But anyway, we will try. And trying, we were thinking that maybe we could use a special material dealing with the idea of better cities, better life, which was a material which was bringing together countryside and city, or artisans and builders. And we were also trying to give the idea of a dynamic, of a joy, of movement, which we thought were very much describing the spirit of Spain, especially from very far away. So someone working with me in the office, a very good Japanese architect who I work very much with, he was asking me, but how can we build a wicker building? I said, oh, never mind, we will not win that. If we win it, we will think about it. And we won it. And then we had to think about it. And then we started to look at our building. This building was a complex geometry. We tried to introduce a piazza, even if in these pavilions in the Expo, you usually don't have piazzas, but we try to have some public space anyway. And we started to investigate the wicker, because we thought wicker was a very Spanish craft. This is a kind of an historical map of Spain where they found archaeology of wicker. So wicker was very much used and is still very much found as a tradition in many, many places of Spain, but it's disappearing little by little. But in the same time, this is also a tradition in China, and in China they use the same kind of technique with a kind of, which makes you think that this is a kind of a common human language. The language of hands is the most diffused language in humanity. So we were trying to deal with this idea, that this language of hand could be put back in the Expo and communicate both to Spain and to China. And we were trying to understand how to make a building with something which usually was used in small scale, and in this time had to become big scale. So at the beginning we were kind of trying, doubting, and one of the things that we decided was, of course, we need wicker, which is a very experimental material, but the geometry is very complex, so we need to be sure about how to make the structure. And then we knew how to make a structure in metal tubes. And we had this fantastic engineer that we are always working together, and so we decided we have a structure made of a metal grid, and on top of it we will have this dress, like a kind of a beautiful dress that we have to craft, and the dress will be as nice as this miyake. And we started to work towards this idea. The work was done also thinking that our office is often looking very much like a craftsman place, where they make wicker is very similar as our office, where we make drawings, we make models, and we make a lot of experiments, especially when we are not very sure about how to solve a very complex thing that we promise to a client to solve. So we tried in many ways to invent this dress we wanted the dress to be kind of three-dimensional. We didn't want to have it a flat one on top of the bones. And so we started to have tries of the possibility of bending a panel which could arrive on side, on a kind of measure which is possible, which is 2 by 1, which is not too small, not too big. How to give the geometry to this panel, which has to be three-dimensional. And this geometry is also coming from this Gaudi roof that I showed you before, no? From the schools of the Sagrada Familia. And then when we discovered the geometry, we had the possibility from the Spanish artisans to have prototypes, and then these prototypes were sent to China in order to be produced. And also we realized that the wicker can come in different colors, and that we could do something that is usually done with wicker, which is a kind of decoration using the different colors. And so we used the Chinese alphabet. Also, we are not Chinese, so we are kind of very, very simple words, very, very simple symbols. And we put these very simple but beautiful symbols on top of the facade of the pavilion, so that the pavilion was kind of like a Chinese inscription, no? Like a calligraphy, saying nice things that nobody could read to the expo, but the elements could read it. No, the elements, the air and rain and wind and the snow, they could read this good message and bring it around in all China. And this was the map. No, we were very conscious that the Spanish pavilion would be a place where a lot of people would go. So the drawing was also dealing with the fluxes of people. Someone going inside the expo and looking at the beautiful expo which would happen here. People going out, some other people going to the restaurant which was here, some other people going to the auditorium or going up in the offices. So we knew that there would be a lot of movement around, and we tried to make the insides of the building with the furniture which would in a way lead this movement of people, not separating, but making the necessary little separation with visual continuity. So we used the material which was similar to the wicker. In the inside we used the wicker, and in the outside and the inside we used bamboo. And we did elements like tables using kind of jokes, no? For example, the tomato is becoming the table, and so on. And then very, very fast, because in China everything is going very fast, things were happening immediately on site. So the engineers had designed together with us this big net of tubes, of iron tubes, and then the same drawings was coming from our studio to the production place, and then from the production place they were a little ensemble arriving into site, and here there was a very delicate process of putting the pieces together in order to avoid also the difficulty of dilatation and changes of the pieces. And little by little they were put together so that the structure was growing, and it was looking little by little like something easy. Of course it was not. You see that all these pieces are, the pavilion had the possibility to be dismantled, because the idea was that one day it would be taken away from the place and maybe put somewhere else. But luckily, at the end, China decided to keep this pavilion as one of the 5 elected pavilions to remain in that part of Shanghai. And now we are dealing with how it will look, the permanent pavilion in Shanghai, because we have to change the skin, the wicker skin that we had been designing for the expo. Meanwhile, we were looking at how life goes on in China. I mean, it's very similar how they work in Spain and in China. The people behave very much in the same way. And where they were producing the wicker pavilions, it was a very, very special situation. You know, these artisans had to be put together. They usually work by themselves because they produce something where they are enough. But now they were producing suddenly something which was very big and very demanding. So they all together took a school in the outside of Shanghai and started to work together to produce the reproduction of the prototypes that we sent from Spain. They were able to produce something like 2 panels every day. And also I discover by looking at the artisans that many times people tell me, oh, this is a very female project because of the skin, which is like a textile. But in fact, the artisan who could work on the panels were all male, because you needed a kind of a strength hand to do these panels. And the females were preparing all the materials, and the males were actually doing the pieces. So by hands, in something like a couple of months, the panels were ready and were transported on site in the expo. And meanwhile, I was kind of very surprised that also they were using the same type of material for construction. You know, they here you can see very well. They have this bamboo structures, which are always mixed with the construction thing. So now the people are preparing for the panels to arrive on site. And this is the bamboo structure together with the panels. They look very much the same, but the bamboo structure will be taken away, and then the wicker panels will remain on site. The way of putting up the panel is very complex, so that in a way it's a kind of a low-tech system, but also a high-tech system, because the geometry is so complex that we needed pieces here which had a special system in order to permit the movement of the many panels in this very different and complex position. We were very doubting. This was a total experiment on site, so we could have had a kind of a disaster if the thing wouldn't have been working. But when I started to see that, I started to realize that in fact, it was working as if we were imagining in the office, and the pavilion started to be not like a dress, but really like an animal. It was really looking to all of us like an animal taking life and taking place into the middle of the Expo of Shanghai. Everybody was kind of surprised and joyful to surprise, and the building was like an animal, was also making smells depending from the day. You could smell a little bit the wicker. Also, in the same time, the wicker was creating shadows inside, so that you really had the feeling that you were inside a wood. The piazza was working very much like a public space, reminding the Spanish round piazzas where most of the public activities are happening. And the wicker was also acting like an ecological system to maintain the climate inside the building. now that the building is there with no air conditioning, with no heating, because they are deciding how to use it in the future Shanghai that will grow there, we could realize that in winter it's not too cold, in summer it's not too hot, and this of course thanks to these double layers of natural material which is protecting the glass and is protecting all the building and the surroundings. So the expo was very special. Also a good Catalan artist, filmmaker did this intervention which was about the Spain of our children. She said, okay, the Spain of our children is a gigantic child. And in China they appreciated very much. They also wanted to keep the child inside the future Expo Museum. And the building was working like a lamp. So now this opened up a new chapter in our architectural life, because we didn't expect that, but we had a lot of results after this building, and we were offered a lot of work, so that now we have an office in Barcelona, but also an office in Shanghai. And very quickly I'm going through this new beautiful projects that they are offering us. This one is dealing with this man who was, when he was alive, a wonderful painter called Zanda Chen. And in this nice place where he was born, in Shizuan, they're asking us to design a museum dealing with the relationship that Zanda Chen, who is this painter here, had with Pablo Picasso. Of course, Zanda Chen ran away from China in '49, and in the '60s he could meet in the Côte d'Azur together with Pablo Picasso, and they had a kind of a nice relationship. Zanda Chen gave to Pablo Picasso some brushes, and Pablo Picasso started to use them, and Zanda Chen said, oh, it's nice, you're a fantastic painter, but you cannot use Chinese brushes. And Pablo Picasso said that he didn't mind, and he made this portrait to his new friend Zanda Chen, which is really a very beautiful portrait done with Chinese ink. And together with this portrait we started to make our first drawings for the future project of Zanda Chen. We started to put together some of the paintings of Zanda Chen, these beautiful drawings of his face, cutting little papers with the silhouette of some of the most beautiful paintings of the painter, or his silhouette itself. And then we created a strange building, which is a kind of a landscape building on top of this mountain, where each one of the pavilion has a different small exhibition, and also the inside of the pavilions will be a garden, so that even if they don't have a very big collection, of course they don't, there will be a garden, which was one of the most beloved things for the houses of Zanda Chen. This makes me very proud, because in this project, it's a very small project, especially for China, but we are acting in a way like diplomats, because we put together the son and daughter of Zanda Chen, who were born outside China, and we are trying to bring them, to involve them into this project in the place where their father was born. And it's a very nice feeling for me, because maybe not very much will come out, but I think it is an historical moment, of meeting together, and I hope this museum could be a very important factor for this place where the painter was born, and also for the painter itself. So we were shown how China can make a celebration. They are fantastic in making rituals and celebrations. This is the first stone, but actually we didn't even start. No, it was just a celebration because it was the day 11 of January 1 of 2011. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So this very symbolic day became a day of celebration, and all the small city of Neijiang was full of colors and dances and parades in order to make this day a great event. And this is this kind of decoration. I saw today in Istanbul also you have a lot of flags for the festivity. I think it's a very beautiful way of making landscape. And also with the paintings of Zanda Chen, we did a small landscape in an expo in Xi'an, expo of gardens. So we did something very, very humble with natural materials and taking as the geometries of the painting of Zanda Chen. And other projects are coming on top of our tables. Now we are developing a big tower near Hong Kong, in the, Shenzhen, which is the Hong Kong of China. So this is big for us. It's a kind of a 50-story tower. The geometry is a kind of a very special geometry, which was very long to find because the client was not very sure, and we had to give 8 versions in order to find the one that the client was saying, yes, I feel happy with it. So we are dealing with this, and maybe soon we will see this new generations of projects in China. And this is the most recent one. We just won this competition in Shanghai for a new piece of city. And these 3 blocks in this new piece of city will belong to the University of Fudan, which is a managing university. And we think the thematic is fantastic, and we can try to make what the dean has in mind, which is making a university as part of the city, so that really you can go through the university and normal public can go through and will find the students and people walking around, and then on the top floors the students will have more secret places where to concentrate and to have their usual work in the classrooms. So now we are dealing with this, the city of Shanghai, a dean who has been studying in the Western world, in Harvard and universities like this, and trying to make a building which is mingling the public space and the university, and making the city become richer, and also the university become richer by not making separation between the function of university and city. So also this is an open challenge, very complicated one, but also very beautiful. And this is a very, very small project in order to show you that many times in the office we also like to make very, very small things. This was opened only a few days ago. It was a small exhibition which was Ask Me, and it had to deal as a house on your own. So in a way it was dealing with Virginia Woolf, this thinking about your most private space, how to live together with it, and how to show to the people your most private place. And then we worked together with some of the best people in the office, and we played with the collage of my real house, of my pets, of my little parrot, of the walls that I have in my house, and we created a new labyrinth with the hints of the house becoming visible for everybody and becoming a part of a new exhibition where the house is transformed and is becoming something else. So little by little, this landscape of my domestic house became a landscape of a public exhibition where things are changing scale, are becoming different, and where all the house is becoming like a game, and the domestic space is becoming a game for everybody. So with this image of joy and being together, I finish my lecture and I say thank you to everybody.